Yes, there you are. Now I can see you.
Great.
You also have your screen already in PowerPoint modus. That's great. Well, I will give you the floor, Vincent, if that's okay with you.
That's great, Wouter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here on behalf of iwell. iwell is leading the energy transition on battery storage in the Netherlands, and we are placing batteries all over in the building environment. And I would like to tell you a bit more about how we do that in the Netherlands, why energy storage is so important in the energy transition where we're facing for, and how that is interesting today already for real estate. So I would like to give a short presentation. It will be a presentation about 10 to 15 minutes. I've got time for questions, but if you have questions in the meanwhile, please ask. My name is Vincent Ruijter, commercially responsible for iwell and one of the founders of iwell. And we are based in the Netherlands and building our own hardware and software on battery storage to make the battery as smart as possible. First, start with the challenge you all have in the energy transition. I pointed out the European real estate owners, but I think it's globally one of the goals and one of the ambitious to reduce CO2, but we're facing quite some challenges in the real estate environment, mainly because the grid congestion is getting bigger and bigger all the time. And what do I mean by grid congestion is that we see that we are transforming our energy transition to a more renewable system where we're replacing solar, wind, but also electrifying our grid by aircon, heat pumps, electrical cars. And therefore, we need to make sure that we move the renewable energy on the right time, on the right moment, in the right quantity. And that's quite a big challenge because you need quite a lot of big cables to be able to do that if you don't make the grid smart. Because at some sunny or windy moments, you have a lot of renewable energy left over. And at other moments in the evening, for example, at the houses, you need a lot of energy. So how do you match the production and consumption of renewable energy? That's one of the biggest challenges. And therefore, you need smart software, but you need also storage. And that's what we do, making it possible not be dependent on grid congestion at the moment. To give you an idea of how big grid congestion is at the moment, here in the Netherlands, you see a map of the Netherlands, and you see it's getting some colors. And like you could imagine, red is not a good color to have on this map, because red means that you cannot generate any electricity in that area because the grid is not capable of handling that renewable energy, because the renewable energy sector is going too fast for the grid operators to keep up. You have the same map on the consumption side, and you see that most of the time, because of electrical vehicles, charging poles are put in place, and therefore the grid cannot keep up with the peak demand for the grid, for the charging poles. So we have quite a big challenge. And what you see happening now is that a lot of real estate owners cannot meet their goals because their grid congestion is so big that they have to wait sometimes for a decade to get the power they need. But the question, of course, is can you wait a decade to be able to meet your goals, to be Paris-proof, what most real estate owners in Europe want to be. So what do we do? What we do is we developed what we call a peak shave energy storage platform with the Q battery, which gives you the capability of storing your renewable energy or your energy that you need for charging poles in combination with software. So it makes you able to steer on the renewable energy side, but it also makes you able to steer with your charging poles or with your heat pumps or with your building management system. And therefore, it makes a more efficient use of the current cable you have. So you, in that sense, make sure that you don't have such high peaks that you cannot control in the energy system, but you can peak shave them with your battery and software and be able to use more efficiently the current cable that is being there at the moment. And therefore increase immensely the capability of putting more renewable, more charging poles, more heat pumps in the building environment than is now possible. Now, we do this for over 150 clients. Most of them are based in the Netherlands at the moment, but are operating internationally. So just to give you an idea of how our client portfolio looks like. So it's all depending already from more industrial, like the Port of Rotterdam, to more building environment, like Altera, Bouwinvest, Azer. Those are big in the building environment in the Netherlands, but also abroad. But what we don't only do the small systems in the building environment. What we believe in is if you make it possible to make one building smart, you can also make a whole area smart. And you can do it on a larger scale. So, for example, with distribution centers, like you see on the right side, but also with small batteries in a building environment that connect together, making it the smart grid, balancing each other and helping each other to keep all the renewable energy in the neighborhood instead of having to get all the energy at night from the grid and delivering energy during the day at the solar peaks. What is our battery? We have a modular design battery that is already from 15 kilowatt peak powers until 14 megawatt peak demand. So it's from a very small battery to a very large, but the software and the infrastructure is on the battery is the same. So you can just scale depending on what grid you need or what how big your mismatch between production and consumption is. But it's not only the battery that is interesting, but it's also compatible with your load and your production. So it's capable of connecting with your PV solar system inverters, but also capable of with the EV chargers. So making that peaking and the peak demand of, for example, charge poles isn't being placed at the same time as you need your peak demand in your building. Like I said, one of the big examples is, of course, is to do that not only on a building level, but also on a community or on a country or a globally level. And therefore, you can aggregate all the batteries in our cloud software to be able to help each other and stabilize the grid. Because one of the big challenges here in the energy transition is making sure that our grid is being stable and being balanced all the time. And therefore, batteries can help instead of the big gas and coal plants that are doing that at the moment. And you get paid as well for that. Now, we make sure next to that is that we monitor all our battery systems. It's very important, of course, to know what your assets are doing, what your buildings are doing, making it smart. And making it smart means that you need to know everything about the asset as well. So we know everything from a level of temperature and voltage on every cell to be able to monitor it in a correct way and make it safe and make it as smart as possible. This all results in a cleaner, cheaper, and more future-proof buildings because it's cleaner because you use more solar at your own building. It's cheaper because you can make sure that you have a lower grid connection, and it's future-proof because you're not depending on all the legislation or high gas prices that are currently happening, you can be more self-sustained and not depending on global developments. That's my presentation for now, and I'm very curious if there are any questions. I do see some chats. Yeah. That's a contact. Yeah, I'll do that. Wouter.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I have some questions. So the business model of this is getting more and more interesting, I guess, when energy prices are rising right now.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we see, of course, next to congestion, where I talked about, you can see that energy prices are currently 3 or 4 times as high as 2 months ago.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, and that means that a lot of return on investment used to be about 6 years for a battery system, but now turn out to be 2 or 3 years, just on the energy prices.
Yeah. Do you see already a large gain because of the energy prices and not just on the congestion? Because that's also a major issue, of course.
Yeah, it helps, or it worsens the problem. You can you can imagine that if you're a real estate owner and you see prices are rising, you see, okay, I need to electrify my grid because I need to make sure that I'm not depending on the gas prices. So I'm putting heat pumps all the time, and they are making plans and accelerating the plans for putting heat pumps in the grid, and therefore they get from their grid operator the message that they can't do that for the next decade because the grid is full.
It's overloaded. Yes, full.
Yeah. So yeah.
So then they look into other different kind of solutions, and then they come to you.
Yeah, but what I do see happening is that a lot of real estate owners stop there as well. Is that the moment they hear the grid operator is not able to supply the energy they need, they most of the time have no idea what to do next.
Okay, so we need to tell the story more and more often.
I would suggest that.
Well, how come? Because I think it's very logical that you are going to store your energy into your own building, so you can also divide it on moments when you need the energy.
True. But I think we got a bit lazy here in the Netherlands because we are used for a very reliable grid for decades.
Yes.
So we just heard the previous presentation. If you're in an upcoming economy that is demands are rising, the grid also can't keep up. But that's part of that's always been that way, and we were not growing on demand as fast as those economies were. But now we're electrifying, and things are rising, and we actually could learn quite a lot from those economies, because how do we make sure that we have maybe a bit less reliability, but scale up faster than we were used to do.
Yes. So you're now active mostly in the Netherlands, I assume, but also in touch with different kind of countries to also expand to different kind of countries within Europe, for example. Yeah,
we're actually with a team currently in the UK and Belgium and in Germany, but still our main market is the Netherlands.
How do you see the differences between those markets? Is there a big difference, or is it all the same in Europe?
No, there is still quite a difference. In the Netherlands, we are behind on renewable energy, and we're trying to make progress on that. But we are ahead of electrical vehicles, and what you see is that electrical vehicles and heat pumps, mainly heat pumps as well, getting away from the gas, make sure that is increasing the electricity by about 5 times as we are used to. So what you see happening now in England, but also in Germany, heavily depending on gas, is becoming more this problem.
Yes. Okay.
They don't always realize it though. So
there's the problem actually.
Yeah.
It is a big problem coming up, and people don't see it yet.
No. And And about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, the grid operator in the Netherlands said, we're never having problems. We can easily keep up. So they underestimated the problem heavily.
Big time. Yeah. And now you see, well, we also need to build a lot because we need to build like 1 million houses in the upcoming 10 years. Well, how are we going to do that if you cannot get access to the grid?
Yeah, good one.
No.
Yeah, another development that is very important.
Yeah, and that's I think that's what also is happening all over the world. Everybody is needing more houses all over the place. So yeah, that's it's going to be a big problem everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, if we can ever help you in those other countries than your home country, because of course we also from the Netherlands, we're happy to help you out as much as we can.
Cool. Good to know. Good to know.
Okay, well, I wish you a pleasant day, Vincent, and speak to you soon.
Yeah. See you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.